us, we'll do things from back here. So.
You're live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Don't mean to interrupt your wonderful conversations, but it's good to see you all. And welcome back to the Camden Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're glad that you're here, and we're hoping that you will be blessed by today's presentation. Just a couple of things that we want to make mention of before we have a word of prayer and get started. You probably noticed that Joan isn't here, and some of you may have heard that her mother passed away yesterday, so just keep her in your prayers, keep the family in your prayers. Obviously, her boys are here, and they're still going forward with the program today, and we wanted you to be blessed today, so if anybody has any issues in the back hearing, we don't have a microphone or a speaker set up. We're working that out. But if you need to, we got a couple chairs up here. You can even move forward if the sound is not quite adequate enough for you. So, I think, is there anything that you guys wanted to say? Okay.
Then it's gonna be a little bit shorter on the Jones talking part because
Right.
We're going to have Q&A at the end.
Okay, so we're going to do a Q&A at the end. We're going to have a little bit shorter on the talking side because Joan isn't here to do her part. But nevertheless, we definitely want to get started here right now. So if you would bow your heads with me and as we pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to come together into fellowship, Lord, and to learn more about our health, to learn more about our bodies and what's best for them, Lord. And we just ask and pray that your Spirit would be here with us to guide and to lead us, Lord. Be with our speakers, be with those who are presenting, that you would give them the words to speak, and that you would impress upon our hearts and our minds the things that we need to hear and how we can change our lives to better ourselves so that we can be better Christians, better people, to serve you, Lord, and give you the glory. Father, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for each precious soul that is here. I pray that you would bless them abundantly in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll pass the word.
well, I'm gonna skim really fast through what Joni wanted to say on what he was planning. The purpose of the seminar is help me out.
Well, healthy eating, especially during COVID.
Exactly. Make it like a restart. To start the new year that is probably not as new by now, but what could we do to make our lives better, improve a little bit our health, and, well, be better, feel better, eat better. Some of the things she wrote down was, in the morning, she always takes some water with lemon and cayenne. That is unbelievably healthy, and besides the hydration of the warm water, because warm water is easier to absorb, the cayenne gives a little kick of nutrition and
Improving circulation.
improves circulation. Yes, you need to talk louder.
Okay.
And she uses ginger as well sometimes, and if it's too hard for you to drink, you can add a little bit of honey, not a lot, just a bit. Other things that we could do is, well, exercise. We all know that we need to move. The lymph is like blood without the red part, the red cells. But the difference is the veins have the heart that is like a pump. The lymph is a whole system like that, but there is no pump. The pump is the muscles. So basically we need to move the muscles so all of the debris can go out. We need to exercise. Drink more water, 3-4 quarts. I see her drinking a gallon a day, easy. And I should be doing that, honestly, but I'm not. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying. That's the important part. Try, and keep trying. We need fresh air.
Amen.
He knows. In this weather especially, we tend to close hermetically the houses, and it's really nice and warm. But we need the fresh air. Probably we could crack one window a little bit, another one a little bit, so there's like a bit of circulation. So the house doesn't need to be at 50 degrees, but a little breeze, go out, and even if you have to bundle up and breathe some fresh air, that's really good. Especially over here, the air is so pure. I come from far away, and in the city nearby, you could see the air. That's enough. You could see like a milky cloud, and it's awful. I get there and I start having all kind of issues because of the air. I come here and it's like fresh air. Deep breathing comes along with that. Being shallow breathing doesn't help at all. We need to take big breaths to breaths, sorry, to keep our lungs and our muscles healthy. Well, I'm gonna start with the practical part of this because I'm not really good at talking just like that. She wanted to make a soup, a salad bowl, and a smoothie. But for logistics, we're gonna start with lunch, which is gonna be the soup. Then she's gonna do the smoothie part that could be done in the morning or for supper or pretty much at any time of the day. But I'm gonna start with the soup so it cooks. I have everything cut down already. And she wanted to show a technique to saute vegetables without oil. Am I talking loud enough? Can anyone hear me? Yes? Okay. Normally for sauteing, you need oil. But we're talking about healthiness. And it's a soup. It's a liquid. It won't stick. So you don't actually need oil for sauteing things. You need one of two things: water or a very good nonstick. But for a soup, you don't need a nonstick. So we're gonna just use water. I cut some onions and garlic here. I'm just gonna put it in the water. There's like this bit of water in the bottom of the pot. That's gonna be enough for it to saute. You're gonna start smelling it in a second. Can I have one lid to put the thank you. Oh, you know, I forgot to bring salt. Well, there's salt. This is gonna give the vegetables a lot more flavor than if we just put everything in there at the same time. Thank you. That should be enough. Thank you. Another important thing, I put probably 3 or 4 big cloves of garlic, and before I cut them, I smashed them with the back of the knife. I like big knives because, I don't know, it's easier for me. But if you have a little knife, it's fine. You can use this to smash them, something flat. Just push it and it will it'll smash it, and that's enough. The garlic has a really powerful, what is it, an agent? Let's say agent, because I don't know this exact word. It's called allicin. And the allicin, it's inside the garlic cells. When you smash them, it releases and it starts working, and the allicin is a really powerful antimicrobial and antiviral etc. It has a lot of properties. I don't know if you can start feeling some smell, maybe not yet, but it'll get there. She likes to make soups this way. This is a really simple way. It could be done with anything, any vegetable you have at home. If you have green beans, you can put them in. If you want corn, you can put them in. If you want to cook some pasta, you can cook them on a side and then add it, because if you cook it there, it soaks up all the water. And then you could do it or you don't, separate it together. It's up to you. This is like a sample. How do you say? Template. Thank you. She's really useful. Here we have some zucchini and yellow squash. For me, the same.
Mhm.
Some cubed potatoes, carrot and celery, and this is some kale that I'm gonna add almost at the end so it doesn't completely wilt down. She made these stewed tomatoes and she canned them. There's a lot of onion, tons of garlic because she loves garlic, and spices here. This has some kind of Italian-ish flavor. I don't know if you, oh yeah, thank you. You can put also some kind of protein. For protein, I mean beans. These are red kidney beans. You could use cannellini beans. You could use garbanzo, chickpeas,
Navy.
name the bean you want. That's something that you could just do as you like it. I don't know if you could smell it.
Smells delicious.
The onion now is pretty much softened up. The garlic is cooking through. So I'm gonna start adding up the rest of the things. Yes, thank you.
What was that?
This was cubed potatoes. This counts like a carbohydrate, starch, little thing. This is zucchini and yellow squash. You're gonna need some liquid. She loves to use broth and the liquid from the canned stewed tomatoes. Thank you. I need something else. Technical issues here. I need a spoon. Oh. Thank you. These are pretty much crushed more than whole. You can use them whole, but this is probably a little easier for the soup concept. We're just pouring things out. If you make your own, you can adapt this, tailor it however you want. If you don't want it to use 2 tomatoes and just like canned tomatoes, that's fine. You could add any dressing you want, any flavor you want. If you wanted to taste a little bit more like chili thing, you could add some different spices like a Mexican blend. Or if you wanted to be more Italian-ish, you could add basil, parsley, rosemary, a little broth. So, well, it's soup. After all, it needs some liquid.
Do you want to talk about heat settings and timing?
I don't think so. Carrots and celery, also really good. I'm gonna leave the beans and the kale at the end because the beans are already cooked. You could use any type you want, they're already cooked, and so they don't completely mush. We're gonna leave them apart. This may need a little bit more water, but I'm gonna deal with that in a bit. This is pretty much it. Just dump a bunch of vegetables, whatever type you have. If you have stewed tomatoes, thank you. You have stewed tomatoes with flavor already. That's amazing because it makes everything easier. We made a huge pot here because we know there was a lot of people coming. You can make however you want. If you like sweet potatoes instead of potatoes, you can add those instead, or peas, corn, anything you want pretty much. So I really don't think I need to tell you for how long to cook a soup. You know when it's done. When it's done, it smells good, the vegetables are cooked through, so I don't have an exact time for that, but we all know how to make. when the soup is ready.
20 minutes, about 20 minutes.
Depending on how fast it boils, like if it takes half an hour to boil, probably it will take a little bit longer. Once it's boiling, probably 20 minutes should be fine. But we're gonna leave this cooking and we're gonna jump to the smoothie part that is actually the breakfast or supper. This was the lunch, but logistically this had to go first. So I'm gonna let her speak and make a really good smoothie.
Thank you. All right, now I get to test out my out loud voice. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. My name is Faith, and I am originally from California, which means two things. I get cold easily here, and I talk really fast if I'm not thinking about it. So hold up your hand if I'm talking a little bit too fast at any point during this. Right now we're gonna wind your clocks back a little bit, and now it's breakfast time, and we're going to make a smoothie. But we're not just going to make any smoothie, we're going to make a green smoothie, which may look a little bit unusual to think of drinking something that looks like your yard, your grass, but I promise you it's delicious. It is, I have a quick checklist of things that I wanted to share about these, about what's good about a green smoothie.
It was this one.
Thank you so much.
stole it.
Appreciate you. So the first thing that I've learned how to do, right here I have a Vitamix, and it's very helpful when making this kind of smoothie because of some of the ingredients that we're going to put in it to have a high-powered blender. A Blendtec or a Vitamix work great. If you don't have a high-powered one, however, you can still make it. There's just one step that changes with it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So after struggling a bit this week making my own smoothies, I learned a really great tip from Randall Lascelle. You start with greens. So to start making this smoothie, we're going to start with some greens. And there are a lot of greens that you could choose from as your base. I'm going to use spinach because it has a pleasant flavor, and it's a little bit of it's a good start for starting with greens. You can also use kale, which is phenomenal, very, very healthy. Chard, salad mixes. You could take a salad mix like you would have in your salad and throw that in. And then for those who are adventurous, you could try arugula, which I tried earlier this week. Very strong flavor, but I want to work up to it eventually. I don't think I'm there yet. All right, so the amount of greens is going to vary, but I encourage you, pack it with greens. This is a phenomenal way. Greens are so healthy for you. They're very healing. The nutrients in this, for anybody who's dealing with a chronic disease, such as myself, I'm actually using greens currently as my medicine. So I'm going to take and pack as much in here. Please don't be intimidated by how much I pack into this blender. And by the way, my hands are washed.
They grind down.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to use this whole container. This is 11 ounces. My goal for greens in a day is a whole pound of greens, which you can do very easily when you are making a green smoothie. And this container, I think, has about 11 ounces. So with this whole container, we're not quite there yet. Still need a salad or maybe another smoothie later in the day. But all right, so we've got that. And then we're gonna put some fruit in it to sweeten it up. And I read a phenomenal book recently. It's called Counsels on Diets and Foods. And the author, perhaps you know the book that I'm talking about, the author recommends keeping meals very simple and not using a whole lot of any one ingredient for meals. So what we're going to do is we're going to use 2 different kinds of fruits to sweeten it up. So I have frozen bananas here. I actually don't use frozen bananas when I make my smoothies in New York. It's cold. But we're going to put some bananas in. And the amounts on this can vary. I'm going to try to make it sweet for you all. So We'll do that. All right. I'm also going to use strawberries. I'll get some of those in.
Don't mind me, I'm gonna quick check with this.
All right. So now that we have our fruit in there, I'm going to put in some flax seeds, and I wanted to talk a minute about flax and chia. Flaxseed and chia are very high in omega-3. These are also very, very healing. And if some of the members of our crowd have questions about flaxseed, there's good things to know about flaxseed for everyone, both genders. Everybody can benefit from flaxseed. Chia seed, before I put it in my smoothies, I usually soak it for overnight. I will put a couple tablespoons in a jar, mix it with some water, shake it up really good, and leave it in the fridge. It's very good to reconstitute seeds, but you don't have to. Just an extra step if you're interested. So I'm going to put in flaxseed, and if you're not used to having flaxseed in your diet, it's one of those things you have to work up to. Currently I'm at 6 tablespoons a day in my smoothies, but I'm only going to put in 3 for this one. So we'll put in our seeds. And then this is almost ready. It just needs water and then to be blended. And while I'm blending it, it's going to take a minute. So while I'm blending, maybe if you want to run through all the fruits that you can think of that you could put in this smoothie, because all of them are fair game. Okay, and I have to gauge the water. Let's see. This is also a new blender for me, so I might struggle just a little bit with the blending process. Okay.
You can also use like almond milk or soy milk or.
That's a really good point. Yes. Yes, you don't have to use water. Water is the simplest ingredient that you could use. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Milks make this creamy, and the bananas also add creaminess to it. Avocados if you're feeling adventurous, but any kind of milk, coconuts, soy, almonds, all of the milks are up for grabs with this, and
Pineapple juice for the
yes, it does. And whole pineapple. All right, so we're gonna blend this now. So while we're waiting for that, I have a little timer. You can't see it, but while that ticks down, just go ahead and think of as many different fruits as you can to add to this, and maybe I'll survey what you thought of. So this is nice and blended. So now a word about if you don't have a high-powered blender. With flaxseed, you really want your flaxseed to be finely ground when you're going to eat it. That's where you'll get the most, you'll be able to absorb the most benefit from it. So if you don't have a high-powered blender, what I do is I blend a couple tablespoons freshly ground in a coffee grinder, a little one of the ones that you just press down on And that's a great way to grind it and then throw it into your blender. But you want your flaxseed freshly ground because that's when it's going to have the most benefit. I know stores sell, Bob's Red Mill sells ground flaxseed, and it is convenient, but it's actually not as nutritiously beneficial. So to do fresh is best. And then now that this is ready, you're all set to go. And I brought 2 things to show you that just might inspire ideas. The first is smoothies are great on the go. So if you have a bottle like this to pour it into, you can take it to work. And then I also like having a mason jar to put it in. I love drinking out of a mason jar or glass in general. It's nice to drink out of. And they have lids that you can put on that have space for a straw. So if you're at the store, maybe start looking for some of these if you don't have one. And then because it does have a hole in it, in order to keep it from spilling on the go, all you need to do is just put a regular lid underneath it and it screws on just fine, and then it's set to go on the road. And so there's all different kinds of fruits that you could put in this, and then this is a meal that would pair very well either by itself or if you needed more calories, if you needed more, to pair it with a whole grain for a hot cereal. And there's so many different hot grains that are easy to make and so nutritious and yummy. So we have oatmeal here. This is actually sprouted oatmeal to show, and this takes about 8 to 10 minutes to make. And Bob's Red Mill, this is a hot cereal, a 6-grain cereal. This one also takes about 10 minutes to make. So when you are in motion in the morning and need to do things quickly, this is a very nutritious breakfast that can come together pretty quick for you. So I hope this gives you good ideas. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Eileen, and we'll go from there.
Well, we figured out the hand-ons. The soup is starting to boil, so we're gonna leave it there while it finishes. And we're gonna talk about the next thing that Joan wanted to show, which is salad bowl. Yes. I'm gonna take one and make like an example. This is a little plate, but your plate should be big. Like the regular plate that you get. Not necessarily a bowl, it could be flat, of course, like the regular plate. It looks like a lot, but most of it should be greens and vegetables. So you will digest it really fast. And most of this it looks a lot, but if we like make it the real size it's not as much as it looks. So it has to look like a lot of volume, visually a lot, but it's actually not that much because most of it has to be greens. The base is greens. The base should be at least half of it. Half of it either mixed greens, or if you only like butter lettuce, or if you want to eat more spinach that day, that's fine. If you want to mix a little bit, that's perfect. So I'm gonna give a practical example here because I'm really practical, and well, there's a place down in Cicero area, I think that's called Core. It's like many of you know it, I can see. Yes, that. It's like a salad bar kind of thing. And you can pick what you want in your salad. This is mainly the idea that we want to share with you here. We made a bunch of stuff for here today, but a lot of this stuff is adds on. Like, let's say you don't need to every day have everything. You could tailor it to what you want each day. You could, for example, we make a baked tofu. You could make a larger batch, or like 1 block or 2 blocks of tofu, and just store it in the fridge. If one day you want tofu, you can add it on your salad, and The next day you don't want it, you don't add it, and it will keep fine in the freezer for a few days in the fridge. We made baked Brussels sprouts. You can add some or not add any. This has to be tasty for you. Maybe it won't be as good for the next person, but if you like it, then it's good. Then that's great. The important thing is pack as much nutrition as possible. Some examples. I'm gonna move this way. I don't know if you want to move the camera. I'm gonna move this way and point at some things that we made for today. These are just peas. A lot of people like them. I love them. A lot of people don't. It's on you. You can add black beans. You can add. Did we bring the quinoa?
Yes, right there in the pot.
Oh, it's the other one. Okay. You could add rice. You could add quinoa. You want it to be like Tex-Mex burrito kind of thing. You could add olives, and you could add even like a Mexican little powder, whatever you want to call it. If you want it to be more Asian-like, you could add grated ginger to it, a little bit of soy sauce, and the flavor will be completely different, but you are eating the same nutritious food. The same salad that is like, a boring salad. The point is, take the boring out of the salad, because it is one of the best things. We could probably live mostly out of greens. We cannot live mostly out of cookies or biscuits or whatever. So if we find a way to have a good salad that we like, and I'm craving a good salad, and with this crunchiness from the carrots, and with some peas or some corn, and with some cucumbers there, maybe some red onions that I forgot to chop. now that I say it, we could be eating this more often. Maybe it may be hard to do it like, okay, now every day of the week I'm gonna do this. No, it doesn't have to be like that. We could do one day and still have something that we are used to, because make a 180 change may be hard. We could center it around, okay, I want to eat baked potato. Okay, it's fine. Make a baked potato and put it on top of a baked salad. Make it part of it. Or a sweet potato. Or maybe you want some rice. Make some brown rice or some quinoa. There's people that just don't like quinoa because it has kind of a different taste. Well, mix a little bit of rice with quinoa. I do that, and my nephews that don't like quinoa, they just eat it. They don't realize they can take it apart. I may be doing that later this week. The thing is, find something between good stuff, fresh stuff that you like. And something that I found that is pretty much the key to keep eating salads, keep eating good, nutritious kind of things. Because I'm gonna tell you something. I was eating something like that for over 2 years in a cafeteria situation, let's say. And over the 2 years, it could get a little bit boring, even if it has all of it. Even if that day you say, I just want this or I want that. But there's one key thing that could make completely the difference. And that is the dressings. It's not that we're gonna eat ranch dressing with a leaf of lettuce. No. We need to, balance it out. And for making an example, on Friday, Joan were experimenting, and we said, let's make at least three dressings. And on Sunday we will make some more, but things happen and we couldn't make anymore. So I brought the ones we made on Friday. They're still good. I wanted to eat them today at lunch, but I saved them for you guys. We made a really simple and really basic creamy cilantro. I don't have the recipe right here. I think she wrote it down. Did she? Yeah, she did. But I'm gonna just skim through some ingredients that I remember. If you want the, she printed up a lot of them. She's amazing. The creamy cilantro has some cashews, bunch of cilantro, a large jalapeno. I like heat. You can just remove the veins, remove the seeds, and it's gonna be fine. The peppers here are kind of mild in my opinion, but that's just my personal preference. Juice of 1 lime or slightly more. You have to go and adjust it. Salt, celery salt, and water. That's it. It sounds simple. It sounds like the same ingredients that we could even have here. We could have a topping of cilantro on the next side, or even parsley. But once we blend it, something happens, and now this is really, really good. Other one that we made on Friday was carrot ginger. I don't know where she got this from, or if she developed it by herself, but it's really good. Like, you could think carrot ginger, that kind of sounds weird, but let me tell you, it is really good. It has, and there's a bunch of recipes there. I'm just skimming through it. You can ask, we could give them printed recipes, so don't worry about it. It has carrots, ginger, coconut aminos, or soy sauce, which is kind of similar, but one has a little different taste. If you know and like about food, probably try which one you like the better. Lemon juice, water. It has some raw onion, tahini, maple syrup, and white miso. White miso, it's a fermented bean paste that you can find at Wegmans. We got it there. I like it because I like to add some fermented foods like sauerkraut or miso, or you could say tofu or vegan yogurt with probiotics, because I have gut issues and I find that fermented things help me a lot. So white miso is a way to add some flavor. It has a really, it's called umami. Is that how you pronounce it? Umami flavor. It's a flavor, it's hard to describe, but it's like the punch of flavor that something that bland needs. That's the umami. The other one, and my personal favorite dressing that we made, you may notice why that's my favorite. It's a ranch type. Normally the store-bought ranch, I just don't like it. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't like it, but this thing is really good. It has cashews, water, lemon juice. This one has a little bit more ingredients. Onion, garlic powder. She loves raw garlic, so she added that on. She found the recipes, I think, for these things, and then we kind of winged it and fixed it, and this needs something else, and we just were playing around. And if you have some tastes, like, I like this better than that, then go on. If you want to take the pepper out of something, if you want to add a little bit more punch, if you want to try these two together, it's really, really good. That's what I was doing the last couple of days. These two together taste really good. It's just a matter of trying. Yes.
Can you name them again? Cashew, water?
I'm gonna give you a printed page.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
Okay.
It's gonna be easier. This has a lot of things like fresh parsley, dill, chives, etc. It has the instructions in here because that one is a little bit different, but it's so good. She likes to make another one, a tahini based one, but we didn't bring it because we ran out of it. And for the people who come here normally when there's potlucks on Saturday, she always brings that one, and it's really good. I don't know how she makes it. I don't think she's actually has. Could you check on the soup, please? I'm not sure if she has a recipe, because every time I see her doing something, add something more, something less, and every time it's different a little bit, but every time is so great. So the bases here remain. Most of it has to be greens. It could be spinach. This is one of the best investments you can make. A spring mix. It has everything. You don't have to think, does it have enough of this or enough of that? Could I add a little bit more? This solves everything. If you want to plant a garden, plant a bunch of everything and just be cutting things up little by little as they grow, and you have a fresh spring mix, literally. Most of it greens, at least half, and then you can add any topping you want. Remember the word topping. The base remains, the big bulk, and in between the toppings, all of it, it makes the other half. Yes, Mary?
I like to add a little bit of walnuts, pecans.
You can add
and
those.
Some raisins or dried cranberries to my salad.
You can add those. Now that you mention it, I love toasted pecans. I don't know if you have tried them. I just put them on the pan a few seconds before they get overdone, and they're really good. Like rough chop, toss it in the pan, and that adds, thank you Mary, a lot of crunch, and it actually, it's filling because it's, well, nuts. But keep in mind, it's just topping, especially nuts. We're trying to keep things oilless. All of the things we've done today, all of the soup and the things that are baked here, none of it has a drop of oil. The sauteing was without oil. That's an interesting technique that I learned here. In my place, I know how to caramelize, which is a different thing, without oil. You just need a good non-stick pan or pot, whatever. But you can do it with water. You don't need to have a lot of equipment to do just the blender, but that's like a basic. We all need a good blender. So we're trying to keep things as simple as possible. This seems like a lot, but I bet that most of you have most of these things already in your pantry or in your fridge or whatever. You have most of it. It's just a matter of what put together. So I think we're gonna go to the hands-on here. I'm gonna ask the people that were going to help around here to actually and make a line, and we could give you some salad and build it up to whatever you want. If you want some corn but you don't want peas, it's fine. Please, Judy and Gloria and Sabina are gonna help me here to portion it and serve it for you. And after that, the smoothie too. We're gonna give you a smoothie, the try of the smoothie, and I'm gonna check on the soup real fast. Once you got all the food, you could go back to your seats, and then it's gonna be a Q&A with Randall. So we're gonna try to make this as quick as possible. Just let me check on the soup.
And one thing that I forgot to add when I was making this smoothie was to actually credit the inspiration for where Joan and got the recipe from. So this is a book called Goodbye Lupus, and it's by a doctor, Brooke Goldner, and she reversed her autoimmune disease using these smoothies. Eating a pound of greens a day, flaxseed or chia, alternating back and forth. And she has a phenomenal story, an incredible healing journey that she describes in the first half of this book. And then she goes into a little bit more behind the science of why this protocol works. And then there are recipes in the back. So if you're curious, you can take a look to see what recipes that she uses. She also has a second book here that's just recipes if you want to just go to those directly. So I'm going to leave those up here, and at your leisure, if you're interested to come and take a look at what's inside here. Joan did want to have copies that were available, but unfortunately we just have these two. But enjoy, take pictures with your phone if you'd like to get some inspiration. But that's where the smoothie protocol came from.
The soup is ready. I did not add any salt because the stewed tomato she makes, it has everything. It has spices, it has garlic, it has onion, it has enough salt. Something that Sabina mentioned that I did not is that some broths have different amount of sodium. So you want to know how much salt are you gonna add if you're gonna add any. There are some that are completely sodium free or whatever, and you need to add to it. It's fine. If you don't want to add broth, it's okay. The vegetables itself are gonna release a lot of flavor. You can just add water and it's gonna be okay. Like in my place, we make soup without stewed tomatoes or without a tomato base. So that's fine too if you like it that way. I'm gonna add the two things that I just remembered. You're gonna have to forgive me. This is pretty much the very first time that I do something like this, and hence my stutter. We got the beans at the end because they are
What did
cooked.
you just put in there?
Beans, kidney beans, and this is chopped kale. So we're gonna add it. It's a good way to add a lot of vegetables and greens. This is a lot. Seems like a lot, but with greens it's tricky when you cook them because you could be using a mountain of spinach and then it's just 3 little leaves that end up like, what happened? It just disappeared. So I'm gonna leave this couple more minutes just for the kale to soften a little bit, and this will be pretty much ready. It's gone. Yes, I don't mind. I think I will just have smoothies. No, I think they could. Yes. Yes, because if we're gonna give them soup and salad. It's very. We were talking about the logistics here. We're gonna ask you in, let's say, 2 minutes, whatever, to make a line here so we could serve you the salad and give you some soup. And we're gonna bring to you the smoothie because it's gonna be a lot to carry on your hands. So once the line finishes, we're gonna bring you the smoothie and you could start trying things, and he will take over while you are eating. He's gonna be talking, and if you need to ask a question, feel free to. Brussels sprouts, sweet potatoes, could you get some? Really fine chocolate. I said rough chocolate.
Diane, grab a bowl and just point out to us what toppings you want on it.
Thankfully.
While everyone is forming a line, as you form a line and get your food, If anyone has any questions about what has been discussed so far, you can raise your hand. We'll try to address those, and then we'll, once you get your food, we'll go into the next part.
Okay, I will.
It doesn't matter. If they're starting from that side, yeah, we can bring dressings over here. Gigi, let us put the dressings in. I'll wait for you. Yeah, we can talk it so people, because otherwise I'm gonna be stuck putting all of the dressings on and the toppings on.
It's hot. Hold it behind the top so you.
What an excellent presentation,
The spoons are, I think, on that side.
because it's helped me a lot. Because I felt so inadequate.
Oh, yeah. Praise the Lord. He's all right.
Meanwhile, if someone has any question for me or for Faith, you can ask us. I'm gonna be serving soup and it's hot, so when you get it, please be careful. Can you make one?
I'm all out of spinach. I feel bad, and fruit. I told her halfway.
It's down here.
That's all right. We'll get there.
The only thing I don't like is those like vitamin cups that go with it. I don't know if I've seen it. You have this cup and you have to twist this cup. I have this thing on top. And then you got this.
With the what? Forks and the knives. I think they're on that side.
Oh, okay.
That was very good.
Soup does smell good though.
Is that vitamins?
I ran out of smoothie and I feel terrible.
It's okay. Can I get a little?
Sure.
Thank you.
It is hot. I just burned my
Like cucumbers on.
They're down there.
Mary, you're I'll try to take it down to the next one. Okay. Would you like
Mary, let us do the screen, okay? Sure. We have Karen Ginger, and we have the cilantro.
Let's do this one. This has been such a now I can feel more active and take care of my health.
I can tell by your voice. That's real. Wow. You want all of them?
Yeah.
anything else? These?
This is from Walmart. We're all okay.
I don't want you to go out of your way though. Brussels sprouts. Yes. Oh, there you go. Yes, ma'am. Hi, who's this? Now, would you like to? Yes,
Let me give you this one. We're praying for you.
If you make it in the blender, and rinse them. And then after you rinse, soak them for a few minutes. It's much easier on the blender and it makes for a smoother dressing. And besides being greasy. I love them in the front. Yeah, they're not.
It's hot. I'm glad you noticed. It's
Found it. Nice. I bought a big one for the candy. I don't know if maybe it's still in the barn or something, but just want to find it. So yeah, it was in the back closet there. I'll put it up here.
Stop that. I don't know what
Those are good. See, there you go.
That's fine.
Yeah, choose it. Scoop it up.
And if I slouch, I feel like we're eye to eye. Too much peas and what else? I guess it's part of getting used to it. I think you're right.
When you see it, I said, I know her. She's got to be a Del Road. That's right. Clara told me who you were. Well, that's Claire.
I got you know what it was.
You said ranch?
Oh, that's all right, my dear. How you been? Doing okay?
Of course, because I just kind of deleted the email. I didn't look. I just
Oh, thank you very much.
Would you like some cucumber?
Oh, yes.
Would you like some? Never thought of it, but I
Thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody, don't run.
Try this when I get home.
It's like these balance is not as good as good.
I was supposed to do today. I just didn't know if I'd be able to do it, so.
That is a carrot.
Put me on the spot to do it.
Try to just get over those 4 minutes of stuff I was supposed to be saying, and then it's all over the place. I did it.
Yes, it is.
I'm supposed to do a bread making one here sometime.
Awesome.
I never tried the steaming.
She might have been really smells good.
Yes.
I do. Yep. That was the second
Brussels sprouts.
That's funny. I don't like Brussels sprouts, but I like cabbage.
Quinoa.
It was always a shame. For no, I was more sick with no one.
It's similar to, it's a little bit crunchy.
I don't gain weight, which I think is because of my issues, but I never have time to eat anything.
Oh wow.
Which is really maybe that's why I have issues, but it's not very hungry.
It's not fun to
No, it's a carrot ginger dressing. Yes, ma'am. Rachel. Would you like some kidney?
And some corn. Thank you very much.
Let's make it work. She said she likes different.
See, that's wonderful, Hadley.
I can help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you want
Filled with thousands of dollars a month, but my insurance pays for it.
You want beets? Probably not.
While she's working around that,
You come around this way now, and then we can have some more.
the young girls did.
Here's that.
What do you want for dressing? Carrot ginger.
Over the top. You gotta straighten the car. Look at you here. Oh, okay.
What can I get you, sir? No, those are Brussels sprouts. Yes. Quinoa. It's an Asian green, a little bit of a texture of, I have rice with a little bit of crunch.
Is this mushroom?
No, it's Brussels sprouts.
I thought they were green. I don't think I want any dressing.
You don't?
Let us,
Tofu.
That's helpful.
that's hard.
Got one waiting for you,
Put a little bit of everything on it.
Yeah, English is not
Thank you. Nobody just had that stuff to it.
How's your husband doing? He has a real bad back, right? Oh, it's hip. I'm starting to have trouble with my left hip. I can't run anymore. I can run stairs, but I can't run. I can walk uphill great, downhill good. And I don't even know how I did it. I woke up one morning, I got up one morning and I had to walk in reverse. I couldn't walk forward. But when it first happened, I'd always have to walk in reverse. I used to go with a mall in the wintertime. I'd walk in reverse, everybody looking at me. Walk in reverse, then I could walk forward for a while. Bad hips are terrible.
There's cashews in each one. And that's part of the ingredients.
Of course, you know, I get the mask out, so I pull it down.
Brian, let us serve you.
Let me go around and grab a bowl.
Let us serve you.
Is there any more bowls left?
You're serving?
Yeah, don't take your own money.
Oh,
That'll work. Thank you. I know, you can take it home. We brought some
Well, a little bit of everything. Sure, whatever you have the most of. You're short on something.
I didn't like it. It was terrible.
You want second? Bien, gracias.
What he does best. Are you gonna go with mine?
No, I'm just dishing up more salad. Somebody else wants some.
Did you want the
Hi,
picture?
Judy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And sweet potatoes?
Tofu. I gotta get rid of this. You just throw it all in and on you go.
And any type of dressing?
My mom always used to have soup. We always made soup.
You like it? Trust me.
And it was always delicious. Hello. Hi. How you doing? Good. Did you eat anything?
That's all right. You'll get some.
See how pretty it is?
They say to eat more Can I give you a dressing or tofu or? Okay. I tried to put the flaxseed, you can grind it up, maybe that one dressing. Okay, we have a ranch style, we have carrot ginger, we have like a cilantro type. So that would be more like your Mexican style. That's orange, carrot. Different things. Because Joel did emphasize freeze bananas, but I didn't. Yeah, Vicky and Bob have. Yeah, I have rabbit strawberries. Yeah, if they're eating, go ahead.
Yes, I love to try all different kinds of yourself. And sometimes just mash them and use the non-stick.
All right, good evening, everyone.
And once it's done,
If I could have your attention, I'm going to begin the next part of the seminar as we'll wrap this up relatively quickly. I know everyone's interacting and getting to know each other, and that's great. And you'll have some time afterwards. You're welcome to stay and chit-chat and whatever.
We'll give you the keys.
I wanted to thank everyone that's come out. Thank you for coming out and being a part of this. We appreciate that, and hope that you're blessed. You're blessed so far, and you continue to be blessed. I want to thank Eileen and Faye for doing their parts. My mother, Joan LaSalle, was supposed to be doing this presentation, not them. And so for them to step in and do it on short notice, I really appreciate that. And they did a phenomenal job. So thank you. There's a couple things I want to go over this evening. As most of you realize, it's under unfortunate circumstances that my mother is not doing this presentation. But we believe that this is so important to help the community that we still wanted to move forward and do it. And we believe it's important to help people find solutions to change their lives, to better their lives, to find healing and health. And unfortunately, in the environment that we're living right now, it's harder than ever to seek good health in one sense, but it's easier than ever in another sense. It's easier because we have more access to the foods. We have more access to those things that will help us be healthy. It's harder because there seems like everything around us is pushing us into this vortex. So you have to, rush around and live your life in a busy way. And so there's a lot of things that are vying for that. But I think it's important that we take the time to put our health in a priority. Because if you don't, 20, 30 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, you're going to look back and regret it. You're going to say, I wish I'd done more. I wish I had taken this more seriously. I wish I'd put more spinach in my smoothie. And it's better to look back and say, I did try. I did put my best foot forward. I did. And I want to ask a question. The smoothies, were they bad? They weren't that bad, were they? It was very good. And yet, 100% healthy, tons of nutrition, it's doable. I haven't had the soup yet. I'm planning to once I finish here. Soup was good, right? This is just vegetables and some greens, and then the salad bowls. Delicious stuff that's very easy to prepare. And if you don't like lettuce, you don't like salad, you don't like spinach, start small and build up, and you'll fall in love with it. Or you'll at least fall in love with how you feel. So I want to encourage you with that. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I got a comment or something.
A comment?
Yeah. When you hit 50, I'm in my 70s now, but when you hit 50, you're starting to go downhill. So if you can start at 50 years of age and start building yourself back up. Because I've got issues with arthritis, but I can still move my hand. I'm still, I got to keep exercising it though.
Yeah, and the thing is no matter where you're at, you can always do something to better yourself. Right. And even if you're only adding one thing a day, if you can add one thing to better yourself, you don't have to go all out. But every day, do something positive for your health. And unfortunately, most people don't do anything to better their health. So start there. Many of us have not lived the best lives, but we can start today.
That's right.
And we can redeem the time. The Bible says to redeem the time. We can do that. I'm going to spend some time talking about something that I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years studying and researching. And I have to use my words very carefully because we are streaming this. So if I say the wrong things, the video will get taken down. You all know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to spell it out. Over the past years, I spent a lot of time researching and figuring out what herbs, what diet, what conditions are the most conducive to healing, not for healing, for preventing and healing what people are suffering from. And I put together a book. It's been printed, and there are copies here. There's plenty for everyone. I'm not making a dime on this, so I'm not here trying to sell you something. I'm here trying to offer you hundreds of hours of research that is not, you can't put a price on this. And I haven't made a dime from this. I don't want money from this, but we're asking you to donate what you can offer. We're suggesting a donation of $10 for it. Because the Camden Seventh-day Adventist Church paid to have these printed. So the money will go back into this fund to produce more health seminars. So I'm not getting it. I'm not going and buying anything with the money. It's going to go to the health seminar. If you haven't had a chance to hear any of the presentations I've done on this subject before, I highly encourage you to get this book. We'll have them in the back where you can get them. I encourage every single one of you to get one of these books before you leave. It's so valuable. And I'm not saying that because it comes from me. I'm saying that because it comes from God. Everything in this book is natural. It's herbal. There's nothing synthetic. There's no drugs. It's all God's methods, and we've seen tremendous success in using these remedies. They've worked incredibly well. I'm not going to go through the book because it's going to be for you to go through and look at. But I want to cover a couple things that are very important. The first one is early treatment. The one thing that I've noticed that happens is a lot of people, they start to feel some symptoms and they think, well, I'm not that bad. I've been here before. I'll rest and then I'll be fine. And I encourage you not to take that approach. Maybe you would be fine, but why take the risk? Instead of taking the risk, I encourage you to be proactive and immediately start doing garlic. Immediately start taking black seed. Black seed and honey are currently the most effective blank of blank right now. As far as current studies are concerned, it's the most effective. There's nothing that beats it. There's no drug that beats it. There's nothing else that beats it. And I have this is black seed oil in capsules. It's Amazing Herbs brand. You can get it on Amazon. You can get a 2-pack for like $42, $45, something like that for a 2-pack. And they're 1,250 milligram capsules. For prophylactic, you can take 2-3 times a day. if you have it, you should start at three times a day. And if symptoms are not abating, double it. Black seed is a food. You can't take, you could take too much of anything, but don't be afraid to double it, because what I've seen is people that are afraid and they're like, well, I don't know, people said, this or that, and they don't do it and then they get worse. And then they take it and it's like you've already lost ground. So start on a high ground. We've seen tremendous success. People in 24 hours turning completely around. But I also don't want you to just rely on one thing. Don't just take that and say, okay, I'm good. I want you to do other things. If you have herbal teas, echinacea is incredible. Red raspberry leaf tea. You can take, 3, 4, 5 cups of red raspberry leaf tea if you're feeling down. It's high in nutrition to help fight illnesses. There's a couple of things that you probably heard are really good for fighting this. Zinc is probably one that you've heard of. And it's okay to take a zinc supplement. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not a drug. But it's also something that's isolated from what God created. So you're taking something that's not in its purest form, and it's not in the way God designed it to be taken. So you need to consider any supplement of that nature to be inferior. Now, man believes that it's better because you can take those high doses. It's not. Wormwood is an extremely high source of zinc. And so if you are starting to not do well, if you can get access to wormwood, whether in tea, it's very bitter, just keep that in mind. If you're wimpy, then you might want to do tincture so you can get it down quickly, or capsule. But it's high in zinc, and try to, you can look up on Google, foods high in zinc, and find the plants, the sources, berries have some. Find the sources you can get from nature is always the best. And then you want a ionophore to get the zinc in the cell, because without the ionophore, zinc doesn't readily get in the cell, and black seed acts as ionophore, as do a lot of healthy foods like berries and stuff as well. They contain quercetin, which helps it get into the cells. You want to immediately, as soon as you have any symptoms, immediately eliminate everything in your diet that is not health promoting. So that means if you are using oil, if you are using vegan butters, if you're eating chips, you want to eliminate those. I'm not saying for the rest of your life you can never have any of that stuff, but I'm saying take your life seriously, take your health seriously, and just say, okay, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to eliminate all this stuff. It's really good to eat simply at that point. And it's okay to not eat a ton of stuff. It's even better if you can do smoothies or juices. It would be much better. The body can digest that, and that nutrition does really well. Now, one of the things that I get a lot of people asking about is if they can't keep things down. What do? I can't keep anything down. And ginger, fennel, and peppermint work incredibly well for this. I use all three. If you don't have all three, you can use ginger and peppermint, or peppermint or ginger separately. And if that can't be kept down, then make a peppermint or ginger tea, and then give spoonfuls over a period of time rather than downing a whole glass of it. And I found that when people do it, if they can't keep the ginger or peppermint down, if they spread it out, just taking spoonfuls, it tends to help, and oftentimes that will calm the system and it will stop the cycle of vomiting. And I would encourage you not to use, don't get the packets from the store. Get actual ginger. Make a tea out of actual ginger. Grate it into your pot and make the tea. If you can get loose leaf of peppermint, it's the best way to do it. And just remember, with peppermint, you should never boil peppermint. So you can boil the water, take the water off the stove, then let it cool a little bit, and then add in your peppermint. You never ever should boil peppermint because it contains volatile oils that are destroyed. They change from a soothing protector to the lining to an irritant. You probably never thought about it. Peppermint can become an irritant if it is boiled, so you never ever want to boil peppermint. That's why I've seen people put it in soups. Don't put peppermint in soups. Spinach is fine in soups, but don't put peppermint. And even like Eileen put the spinach in last. It's the best way to do it to preserve the quality. So that's how to deal with that. There's another thing that I get a lot of questions about is blood clotting. Now we know that that's associated with what's going on, both the illness and the current treatment causes blood clotting, okay? The treatment, unfortunately, is much worse, okay? I'm just being transparent with you. It's 100 times, one study considered it 100-fold worse than if you actually get the illness. I'm trying to be very careful with my words here because the last video I did with a group that had me on got pulled, so bear with me with my wording here. So for blood clotting, a lot of people are recommending aspirin. You do not want to use aspirin because aspirin actually reduces your ability to fight illness. Aspirin, NSAIDs, Tylenol, ibuprofen, all these things. I know that people think they're safe, but they're very dangerous, and they actually increase your mortality, sometimes by 40%. There's studies that indicate up to 40%. It's very dangerous. And I understand most people, you don't want to do nothing, and you can't do nothing. You have to have an alternative. Turmeric works incredibly well. What I've been recommending is cayenne and turmeric. Extremely good combo for this. Cayenne actually has the ability to break up blood clots. It works over time, though. It's not something that happens immediately. If you have a blood clot that's ready to cause a severe problem or death, a week of cayenne is probably not enough to clear that up. It takes time. Just keep that in mind. But starting on something like that, now keep in mind, you can't really do cayenne and turmeric and also do blood thinners and aspirin. You have to pick. So if you want to do the drugs, but don't combine them. In my opinion, the herbs work better and they're far safer. So, but if you're on blood thinners, find a doctor that will work with you to wean them off and move to the natural. It's best not to go cold turkey. It's best to work with a professional that will help you, and there are doctors out there, naturopaths, holistic doctors, that will work with you to do that. There's other herbs that I've studied: ginger, ginkgo biloba, work to break up blood clots, so you can use them as well. Trying to think of the other ones that I've... What? Yes. Bromelain from pineapples is very effective. It's in fact, I was trying to grade them today, actually, this afternoon. I was trying to grade the most effective. And so far, I think pineapple is on the high end. The bromelain from pineapple, and they always study the bromelain, so it's an isolate. And so you can't always say, well, how much pineapple do I need to use? Well, if you're doing a green smoothie, use pineapple as your fruit. Like, throw a bunch of pineapple in and you're getting that. And another thing that bromelain from the pineapple does is it assists in digestion, especially for people that struggle with digesting food. It helps a lot. So if that's one of your issues, give that a try. You can start with the isolate. I prefer not to. I don't believe in isolates. I don't take isolates. I used to years ago, and I never saw the benefits. And when I switched to completely using whole foods, whole herbs, I saw tremendous benefits in healing. So I currently do not recommend and do not use any isolates. I don't use isolated minerals. I don't use isolated vitamins. And I don't recommend them. But if you do, I'm not condemning you. I'd rather see you start using like bromelain than using a drug. So it's kind of like these foods. Start where you're able and work towards it. And I'd rather see you do that, and then you can slowly move on than using a drug. Eileen talked about deep breathing. It's so important, and it's something that none of us do. Okay? Nobody here breathes the way God intended. And I know that sounds like a judgmental statement, but I don't, and I know I don't. And it's something I have to consciously think about and actually work towards, otherwise I don't. And the reason is because we've trained ourselves since little children to breathe incorrectly, breathe shallowly. And if we had been trained correctly, it's not your parents' fault, they didn't know about it. But if we'd been trained correctly, it would eliminate a ton of disease. A lot of disease is caused by the fact that we're not breathing in enough oxygen, we're not oxygenating the system. And if you fix that issue, it goes a long ways to preventing a lot of these issues with breathing. It ain't gonna prevent all of them, but it goes a long ways. It also ties into, you probably heard of glutathione and NAC. Now, most people want you to supplement. I want you to use garlic as your source. So if you use garlic, it's a tremendous source of the precursor that converts. If you do that, and then you also do the deep breathing, it drives it deep into your cells. So they work very well hand in hand. Now, there's a few other things that happen with this illness that are important to be aware of. Fever is often associated with it, and one of the things that I've seen a tremendous push towards is fever suppressants. And even in the natural side of the community, there tends to be a idea that if the fever gets too high, you really need to do a fever suppressant to protect yourself, otherwise it's going to cause damage. And the reality is that there's no literature to support that. And if you want proof of that, I have the literature. I've even written an article on it with the support, and I can show you the literature that there's absolutely no support of the idea that fevers harm or cause any death. It doesn't happen. If somebody dies with a high fever, it is, according to the Merck manual, the underlying issue caused the death. A fever doesn't have the capability of causing death. So if somebody dies in a fever, it's caused by what's going on in the body. So the logical idea is, why is the body creating the fever? And what can I do to assist it so it can, by itself, reduce the fever? Reducing a fever always increases your mortality risk. Even if it's only by 1%, it's too much in my book. It always decreases your immune response, as well as decreasing your immunity after. So if you take a fever suppressant, you get over the illness, your antibodies, long-term, and your T-cell immunity, your memory T-cells, are reduced. So you may not have as long of immunity. Another thing, I just thought of it, that reduces your long-term immunity is sleep, not getting enough sleep. So if you're working nights, which unfortunately some of us do, I'm not condemning you if you do. You might have to for your family. But if you're working nights, or if you're staying up late, your immunity is reduced considerably. And they've done studies and they found that even if you, the next week, sleep more to make up for it, it doesn't work. You can't make up that time. So just keep that in mind. You should be in bed 9, 10 o'clock at night. And if you have to stay up late for a few nights in a row for some really good reason, just remember that your body took a hit and you may need to try to assist it. You can never make it up, but try and assist it. You know, with immune teas, you should try and get to bed earlier the next day. It's a good thing to keep in mind. Back to the fevers. Fever suppressants are dangerous. So how do we deal with it? Well, we need to keep in mind that when you have a fever, it's very dangerous to have a fever and have a dry fever. Dry fevers kill. Just think of your car if it was to overheat without water. You didn't have fluid in your radiator. What happens? It's not a good picture. So you need to keep hydrated. And one of the best ways that I found to deal with fevers for this, and we found huge success with this, is what's called a fever bath. And with a fever bath, you heat the bathtub with water as hot as can be standed without being scalded. So back it off You need to make sure that the person isn't going to be scalded. And if you have to, you can use a thermometer to make sure of that. People use their finger. Finger is not a good way to measure temperature. An elbow would be better, but a temperature gauge will be much more accurate. So you want hot, and then while the person is in the bathtub, it should be 15 to 20 minutes, no longer than 20. Should never be in a fever bath longer than 20 minutes. And if the person's elderly and weak, make it shorter. They might have to do more than one, the next day, in the evening, whatever, but make it shorter. They're weak. And if the person is weak, frail, older, prone to fainting, somebody needs to be there with them. It's very important just to be safe. You want to place a cold washcloth on the forehead, and the person should be drinking a diaphoretic herbal tea. A diaphoretic herbal is a tea that creates perspiration. And yarrow is the best, but most people don't know where to get it. If you can't get yarrow tea, use red raspberry leaf. Most people can get access to red raspberry leaf. And you should be drinking 3 or 4 cups of tea during that time minimum. Yes, Mary?
I've heard that dandelion root is also a natural diuretic.
Diuretic?
Diaphoretic. Makes you sweat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dandelion is a very excellent herb. I haven't used it in conjunction with a fever bath. But if it's a diaphoretic herb, it should have the similar function. I love red raspberry leaf because not only is it a mild diaphoretic, but it contains so much nutrition that it's feeding the cells at the same time. So it's doing multiple functions. So there's a lot of benefits there. Another thing that I found that's so crucial is you have to be at peace. Fear negatively impacts your immune cells. It reduces your ability to fight illnesses, and it reduces your immunity after illnesses. And so if you look at these studies and they say, well, the immunity lasts this long and whatever, you can extend that by just doing the right things, by getting proper nutrition, by getting proper sleep, by being at peace. Do not let your heart be stressed. The Bible says, what does the Bible say about being at peace? Can anyone think of Bible verses on that? I just decided to do this, yes.
Obedience to God's law.
Obedience to God's law, yes, absolutely. That's definitely part of being able to be at peace, that we know that we're right with the Lord. But anybody know, yes?
Let not your heart be troubled.
Let not your heart be troubled. Amazing verse, yes. Any others?
He who eats or drinks judgment to himself, he does not judge the body properly. For this reason, many are sick and many sleep.
That's a very good thing verse to remember, that how we treat this body. God has lent this body to me, how I treat it. Yes, in the back.
I just want to make a comment. Everything that God created is good for you. Most of what man has created is not good for you. And so everything that God has created, all creatures and all vegetables, everything he created is good for you. But you don't need to abuse it. When you abuse it and you eat too much of any one thing, then you're in trouble.
We should be moderate in all things, it's true.
There are clean and unclean foods, so even though God made the pigs, you're not supposed to eat pork.
There's wisdom in avoiding certain foods. I do agree with you that man is the author of much woe in the world. That is unfortunately very true. And in the beginning, God did create everything perfect. And unfortunately, again, man decided that he was going to change that. So I just want to finish with the fever bath. After the person is finished, have someone assist them out. You might be a little lightheaded because of the heat. Be careful. If you're doing it by yourself, if you're younger, I do them by myself. I'm young, I'm not worried. But it's best to have somebody assisting you. Even if you're younger, when you're ill, sometimes you can get to a point that you will faint. So use wisdom. You should always be using wisdom, so it's always best to have somebody with you. Afterwards, I do a cold shower, and then you go to bed. So you don't do the fever bath and then go do your laundry. You do the fever bath, cold shower, you go to bed. Now, it's excellent if you want to cut up an onion, place it on the bottom of your foot. Excellent. If you're having trouble breathing, chop up an onion and you can put it on your chest. It works better if you heat it slightly for about a minute in a little bit of water, but you not saute it. And place that on your chest. It's excellent. But go to bed and just try to sleep and let your body do its work. We found that doing that, oftentimes people will wake up feeling amazingly better. Maybe not 100%, but a lot better. And most of the time when people do fever baths, the fever will break either shortly after or through their sleep in the night. Usually the fever breaks. Even from my experience with my bout with this, it was only the fever bath that would break the fever. All right. I want to go over a couple things with a couple herbs. Again, there's so much information in the book, so please remember, get the book on the way out. Yes?
I just have one question about what you were talking about before. You said when you take the turmeric, to take cayenne with it. I heard that you were supposed to take black pepper with it.
Right. Well, I wasn't saying take it with it as in benefiting each other, but for their own singular properties. So cayenne is a blood equalizer. It equalizes the blood from head to toe. I'm going to briefly explain this because I think it's important. Blood thinners, they're kind of an oxymoron. It's not actually what's happening in your body, but the way blood thinners work, oftentimes this is misunderstood. People say, well, spinach is a blood thinner, cayenne's a blood thinner, and turmeric's a blood thinner. It's not true. None of these things are blood thinners. The only blood thinners are, in the technical sense of the term, how they use it, are drugs. There's no herbs that are blood thinners. That's not how they work. Cayenne works to equalize the blood from head to toe. That's how it stops bleeding. It doesn't stop bleeding by thinning your blood. And cayenne does not increase your chance of internal bleeding. But blood thinners do. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're on blood thinners, this is why, if you're on blood thinners, I encourage you to work with a doctor to help you get off them, because it increases your chance of internal bleeding. And because of that, your chance of dying of internal bleeding. It's a very dangerous thing. And hundreds of thousands have died from this, never diagnosed. So those things work by inhibiting natural processes in the body and stopping the body from doing its job. Cayenne does not stop the body from doing its job. Cayenne works to help the body equalize so you're not bleeding out from one point. So back to your question. With cayenne, black pepper does increase the absorption of turmeric. And also if you take turmeric with fat or with a meal that has fat in it, it increases the absorption as well. So if you're worried about absorption, that would help. But I've just found that cayenne and turmeric are good things to suggest to people because they work very well in their own singular ways. Okay, I want to talk about, yes.
Somebody had a question here.
You don't have to take them together. I'm not aware of a synergy. There might be, I'm just not aware of a synergy between them. I just know that that's what I've been recommending. I've seen good results with. And I know from research and working with people that cayenne and turmeric over time do have the ability to break up blood clots. It can take time. I'm not talking about days or weeks. I mean, you're talking a long haul here. But over time, faithfully doing it, I've seen people go back to the doctor and do the test, and the blood clots have been reduced. Now, like things like pineapple, I've seen the studies, but I haven't worked with people doing pineapple to say that. But with cayenne and turmeric, I have. But again, it's something that over the long haul. I'm going to open up for questions in a minute too. If you guys have other questions, that's fine. I want to talk a little bit about breathing and the lungs. Campaign is a tincture that we've been recommending to people more recently. It's not, it wasn't in my original book. It's in the recent update. We've seen tremendous benefit for a lot of people that have had trouble breathing or feeling really congested. It's opened up their airways. Now, it depends on what your issue is, the underlying issue. It's not going to help everyone, but we've seen tremendous benefit from it. So if you're struggling in that area, Campaign would be something to look into getting. Mullein is an herb that helps heal the lungs over time, and lobelia is another herb that helps calm and open up the airways. So those herbs, and again, these are all in the book. That was most of what I want to cover. Does anyone, I'm going to open up to questions. Does anyone have, yes, back.
Is raspberry tea as good as the raspberry leaf tea?
It would be, yeah. That's what I mean, red raspberry leaf tea, not berry. It would be probably harder to make. I've never made a tea out of the berries. So I'm talking about the leaves. Now the berries are very medicinal as well, but how I use the berries is in a smoothie or eat them. So that's how I do that. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment again.
I love her.
I don't know if you like that comment, but here's the thing. I know a person who is on, the doctor usually puts you on 2 blood thinners.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell you, don't eat grapefruit.
Yep.
Well, grapefruit, I'd rather eat the grapefruit and try that first before I would
Yeah.
things they offer.
You could look into the foods they tell you can't eat alongside it. They're probably the natural way to do it. So that's a good point. And grapefruit does not possess any properties that are bad. It's just when used with a blood thinner that it is dangerous. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, do you lose a lot of nutrition when you eat frozen fruit instead of fresh?
There's gonna be a loss of nutrition, whether if it's frozen or canned or dried. You're always gonna lose some nutrition. Fresh is always better. So if you can grow it in your garden, eat it out of garden, that's the best. Frozen is still contains a high amount. You probably lose 10 to 20% depending on how it's done.
Oh, okay.
Dried, if it's freeze dried, you lose very little. If it's dried traditionally, the traditional method, you lose up to 50, 60%.
When you buy frozen berries in the store, how are they frozen? What method is used?
I'm not entirely sure on that, but I
just cool it down in a very fast period of time to a very low degree, so they try to keep the crystals as small as possible so they don't break the cellular barriers. It's different when we freeze them in our freezer because it's not as fast as a commercial one, and that's why when our raspberries or whatever gets thawed, it like mush.
Yeah.
If you thaw something that is commercial, it kind of has a little bit more integrity. If you have noticed that, but nutritionally, honestly, I don't know if there's a difference. That's just the texture in it.
And I wouldn't be worried about that. Do the best you can. If you have access to fresh fruit, like during the times of year when it's available, eat the fresh. Get it. You know, around here, apples are when they're in season. You can get them really cheap. Get them and eat them, and work with them. But just do the best you can do, and that's good. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Put
Yes.
onion or garlic in your socks to be better at night?
Usually, we use onion. I usually recommend people eat garlic. That's the way I use garlic, but there's probably truth to it being used for that method. Onion's easy. You just cut one in half and you tape it there. Like, you might look weird. Just don't have anyone over.
Put it in your socks.
But Yeah. Yeah. Just don't let anyone know. They'll think you're cuckoo. They'll take you to asylum somewhere. Keep your window. Well, you should have your window open, even in the winter, for at least a few minutes. If you're not doing that, you need to start doing that. Trust me, you can deal with the cold. You need fresh air. Open one on one side of the house and one on the other. Get circulation going. It's very important. You're not going to freeze to death.
And they recommend 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
You open your windows up and get fresh air.
Especially if someone's sick in the house.
Yeah. Because you know all that disease and all that air is stagnant. You want to clean that out. You want to get it out. So.
Yes.
And it's not going to break the bank if you do it 15 minutes a day. Don't leave the window open all day.
Right.
You know.
And you can turn the furnace off maybe while you're doing that.
And stand in front of it and take a couple of deep breaths. You know.
Or better yet, go outside.
yeah. Go get some exercise.
Go outside, take a walk around the house.
That's right.
That makes a big difference. So, anyone else? Yes, Brian.
Somebody misunderstood you at one point because they had never heard of black seed and they thought you were talking about flax seed.
Thank you for bringing that up.
You should maybe highlight that sometime.
Thank you for mentioning that. I should have thought about that. So, black seed, the color? B-L-A-C-K, black, not flaxseed. Yes, black seed. And it's called, if you want to look it up, it's Nigella sativa is the Latin name of it. And you're welcome to afterwards. You can come up, take a look at this. You can take a picture of it if you want. This is the brand that I've seen the most amount of people use. So I personally worked with a lot of people. And this is the most used brand, the oil in the capsule form, and I've seen tremendous success. So that's why I'm currently leaning towards that, because I've just seen it work so well, and it's so easy. A lot of people get hung up on taking the straight oil or grinding it up and like, how, this is really easy and simple. So this is a very good solution.
Is that the one that comes from India?
I don't know exactly where this one comes from.
I think it is resourced from India.
It might be. I thought they said it was one of 2 or 3 sources. So we're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes here. I just want to give you a couple more minutes to ask questions. If there's any more questions before I wrap up, yes.
To know about honey, why honey is good.
Wow, there's a lot to that question. Honey, why is honey good for you? Is a question. Honey is antimicrobial. It's a mild, well, I won't even say mild. It's an antibiotic. It works really well. I mean, if you think about it, honey's the only food in the universe I'm aware of that doesn't spoil. They found it in the tombs from the Egyptians. Perfectly good to eat. So something, now I know McDonald's food does the same thing, but it's different. But the fact that God has a food that doesn't decay, like doesn't go bad, it says a lot. There's a lot of benefit to it. It's very synergistic, and so what I found is using it with potent immune herbs, there's a huge synergy. So that's why we use it with black seed. It works very well in synergy. When you make a tea, after you have steeped it, add some honey for flavor. Excellent way of getting honey into your diet and also flavoring your teas. Avoid sugars. Don't ever put straight sugar in your teas. It's just a really bad idea. You're feeding the disease. Honey is the best way. Maple syrup is okay, but I think honey is better for teas. I do use both.
Doesn't that raise your blood sugar?
Honey? Mm-hmm. Not usually. If that's an issue for you, if you take it and it is for issue, then be careful. There's obviously people that would have that issue, but honey is actually good for diabetics. They've done a tremendous amount of studies and they found that it's very medicinal for diabetics. If your diet is consisting of a lot of fat, then even fruit can raise your blood sugar and it can spike. But if you're eating smoothies, green smoothies, and you add in honey, the vast majority of people are never going to see a spike because it's the fat that plugs the cells and prevents the insulin from doing its job. And so that's generally the issue. But again, if you're struggling with that, ease into things, pay attention, listen to your body. If your body spikes after eating honey, don't say, well, it's good for me, I'm just going to take a cup of this. Use wisdom. I'm not, yes.
What about somebody with cancer?
There's no negative. Honey does not, it's actually, there's studies for benefits in cancer. It does not promote cancer.
Local honey? No, but if somebody has
Yes.
cancer, is that gonna feed it
No.
honey?
No, cancer feeds on anything it can get its hands on. So, but no, honey is a anti-cancer product. And yes, get it local. Local, raw, never pasteurized. Pasteurized honey, you might as well throw it away. It's garbage. I don't know. The darker is always better. I've heard that, but it depends on the flowers that the bees are getting it from. So I wouldn't consider a light honey necessarily a bad honey, but I also wouldn't be buying honey from Walmart that is the Great Value brand. I'd be getting it local. Yeah, get it local and raw.
One thing I noticed when I had bees was the dark honey was usually in the fall when the goldenrod was getting the pollen and stuff from the goldenrod. That made the darker honey.
That's an excellent point. Yes.
Do you know anything about agave, the plant? Is that all right to use?
I mean, agave is the same thing as stevia. The plant is fine. It's just as you process these things, it starts to be concerned. Now, is agave okay? I think it's relatively okay to use. But in a processed product, I would use it sparingly. I'd use it minimally. I consider honey to be the most natural. I know there's some processing involved, but I consider it to be the most natural way to sweeten things. It's my preference. And because of its high medicinal value, I think it's best. I'm going to take one more question and then, yes, in the back.
You started the seminar saying that your mom starts her day every morning with a glass of warm water. Is it boiled?
No, just warm.
Warm water, and she puts lemon in it. And cayenne pepper, how much?
Well, if you're not used to it, you're going to have to start out small, but you can build up to a tablespoon a day. Now, I know, it's scary. Most people are never going to get there. And I found the vast majority of people, they think a pinch is like the world ending. And that's fine. Do what you're able to do. If you're 85 pounds, you don't need a cup of cayenne in your day. Your body doesn't have as much geography, I don't know. If you're at 250, 275 pounds, you need a little bit more. There's a lot more blood pumping, okay? So just keep that in mind. Size matters. How big you are, how tall, and all that stuff. If you can work yourself up to a teaspoon and do that 1 or 2 times a day, you should notice tremendous improvement in the quality of your life. It's also going to, if you do that consistently over a period of time, it's going to help reverse heart disease, and it's going to help heal the heart. Now, I'm not telling you that if you just do that, it's going to reverse your heart disease. You need to do more, but it will assist. They found so many tremendous heart healing benefits in cayenne, and it's incredible. So just warm water with, squeeze your lemon in. I squeeze a whole lemon when I do it, and then, work your way up on the cayenne as much as you can handle. Yes.
My husband's up to 10 drops with the cayenne tincture.
The tincture, yes.
3 times a day. He could do more, but I said just.
Yeah, and the tincture is going to be more concentrated, so keep that in mind. You're probably not going to want a teaspoon of the tincture. Yes.
Can we go back to the breathing again? I don't think we
Oh.
got through that.
Thank you.
What do we have to do
I appreciate you bringing that back. So, in the book, let me see, where is it here? I have a brief explanation. There's many ways that people recommend to breathe. There's many different techniques and a way to do it. The most important thing is to, I know this sounds simplistic to say, but to breathe deeply. And so when you're breathing in, take as much as you can in, and then when you're consciously doing this, hold it and allow it to actually penetrate the cells. Most people, the way they breathe, it's very shallow, and so not much is getting in, but hardly any is being held. And so if you pull it in deep, and you really deep breathe, and you push it down your diaphragm, and you hold it there. Now, don't do this while you're driving or on a run. It's not a good idea. But when you're able to think and really do this, do this as often as you can throughout the day. Just stop and deep breathe. And then the rest of the day, try just practice breathing normally but deep. So you're not holding it, just taking deep breaths, especially when you're outside. Take deep breaths in. And you can alternate through the nose and through the mouth. Both have benefits. But it's so important to do that, yes?
Yeah, I was just going to say a few things about the deep breathing. A couple of things that I've learned about it is that you want to, when you're doing taking the deep breaths in and you're holding it, you want to put your shoulders back, put your head up. You don't want to be slouched over, sit on the edge of your chair with your back arched the opposite way. Because oftentimes when we sit like this and it crunches everything down.
Yep.
So you want to sit up nice and straight or stand up and put your shoulders back. I usually, the way I've heard it is take it in through your nose and then hold it for 10, 15, maybe 20 seconds. Don't pass out. You can't hold it that long. And then let it out through your mouth. Let it out through your mouth. That's kind of the way that I've heard. But, do it outside. Do it, preferably outside, because obviously your house is going to have more toxins in the air. So.
Yes. And what the thing you said there, Harvard actually says that shallow breathing, which is how most people breathe, they use the word hobbles the diaphragm. It actually cripples you. And so, like he said, with just standing straight, it's another thing a lot of us struggle with. Standing straight, keeping the way God designed us. We were never designed to be hunched over, unfortunately. With computers and everything, that tends to be the way we do. And our chairs in our houses influence that. But Harvard says that it hobbles the diaphragm and the cells never get a full share of oxygenated air. Now just think about it. There's a big debate in the medical community over, why do we have cancer and why do we have defective cells? Could it possibly be because you're never giving them enough fuel, never giving them enough oxygen, and finally the cells just give up? They can no longer function the way God designed. And if we give the body the best, so we're talking about nutrition here, we get the best nutrition, the best oxygen. If we give it the best we possibly can, we can pray to God when we're done and say, Lord, I live in a sinful world, I can't do everything, but I've done the best I can do. And we can claim the promises in the Bible and ask the Lord to bless it, and He'll bless your efforts.
Amen.
And forgive me for what I'm about to say, but if you're eating at McDonald's every day and you're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not drinking enough water, you're not breathing deeply, you can't pray to the Lord and say, Lord, please bless my efforts. I'm doing the best I can. You cannot do that. And I'm not saying, we all fail and we all have a journey, and we're not all at 25 cups of spinach a day. Probably nobody can be. But you can day by day work towards bettering your life. And that's why we do these seminars. And I want to close on this thought, because I think this is important. This is something I want to. And I think, do you guys have the books in the back? Yes, thank you. Most of you, I think, are aware, Pastor Russ mentioned it in the beginning. Doreen Whedon passed away. And it's not easy to be here today and do this seminar. And I talked to Sabina, and The church was supportive of moving it forward. The church was not pushing to say, well, we need to do this. The church was supportive, and they've been supportive, and I thank the church here for being supportive of us doing this. But there's a reason why we're doing this today. My grandmother had a heart for this community. And she had a heart for what she believed was important. And she taught tremendous healing through changing her lifestyle. And she lived far longer than she should have lived, according to the medical community. And if she was here today, she'd want me to be here to share this because it meant that much to her. And so I'm here not because it's easy, but because this is important. And some of you are struggling with illnesses, and maybe something you learned today is going to transform your life. Maybe you're going to go home and make a change that 10 years down the road, you're going to look back and say, I'm so thankful I changed my life. I feel so much better. But there's another reason why I wanted to go ahead with this, and that is I really believe the time is short. I really believe that the Lord is coming soon. And I don't know that we have enough time to put things off, to wait to change our lives. The Bible says today is the day. If you hear his voice today, hearken. I don't know where you're at in your relationship with the Lord, but as important it is to eat your green smoothies in the morning, during the day, to get nutritious diet, it's important to get a nutritious spiritual diet daily. And I encourage you, if you're not waking up in the morning, spending time with the Lord, you need to. You need to change that. If you're not right with the Lord, you know there's things in your life that are not right, that you're at odds with a brother or sister, as somebody in the church, you haven't made something right, you're angry with somebody. Maybe there's anger in your heart because of what's going on in the country. And as much as I agree with you that it's terrible where our country has come to, if you're allowing anger in your heart over it, it's not good, it's not healthy. And it can cause a heart attack. It can cause a stroke. You know, in Revelation in the Bible, it talks about a time when, just before Jesus comes, in fact, just before the Bible talks in Revelation about Jesus coming, it mentions about a time when we're not going to be able to buy and sell. The enforcement of the mark of the beast. And that scares a lot of people. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to encourage you that the Bible tells us, and it explains what that is. I'm not here to explain the mark of the beast, but I want you to think about, just before Jesus comes, there's going to be a time that we can't buy and sell. Have you not seen in what's going on in the world today the foreshadowing of that? We've seen legislators and politicians not only talking but enacting rites of passage for you to get your vegetables and your groceries. If you don't do what we say, if you don't treat your body the way we say to treat it, you don't get to shop here. And we've seen the foreshadowing of this. And I know it looks like things might be rolling back and freedoms are coming back, but Revelation says it's not going to happen long term. And so my encouragement to you tonight is, and we're going to have some seminars coming up actually talking about Revelation, the mark of the beast. So keep tuned for that. It's going to be coming up. We will let you know if you're interested in that. But my encouragement to you tonight is to make the resolution to ensure that you're right with the Lord. You know, none of us expected my grandmother to pass away. It was not, she was in good health. She had energy. She had more energy than most 30-year-olds. You know, life is short and it's precious. And you don't know when your life might end. And God forbid that one of us pass away this week not being right with the Lord, not making things right with the Lord, not ensuring that our salvation is secure. in Christ, that we've accepted his blood, we've made amends for anything in our life that we need to. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do this health seminar, because I think the health is so important, but I think the spiritual is so important. And I just wanted to really encourage that if there's anything in your life, make it right tonight. Make it right tonight. And then tomorrow morning, when you begin doing, maybe you're going to start a green smoothie. Maybe you're going to add in more spinach, more lettuce, more. When you begin that journey towards bettering your health, you start on a good footing with the Lord. You start in a good spot. And then when things happen in the world, and that time comes when we can't buy and sell, we know who we trust. We know who we have our foundation in, Jesus Christ. And he will carry us through. But we need to build now. We need to build that trust in the Lord now, today. And so I just want to encourage you with that. If you want to talk to me or Pastor afterwards, you want to ask any questions about the health seminar, about the things that are going on in the world, herbs, talk to me afterwards. I'm happy to talk to you. Please, as you go out, please get one of these. If you don't feel like you need it because you feel like you're healthy, buy it for somebody else in your family. You know somebody that needs reassurance. This is going to help reassure them. Again, every single penny is going to go to promote and support continued health ministry in this community. So I'm going to close with a word of prayer, and then you are welcome to fellowship, chit-chat. You can come up and talk to me, ask questions. You can ask questions of Eileen and Faith. They'll be by the door on their presentation as well. If you please bow your heads with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege to come together and to hear about your wonderful healing methods. And Lord, I just want to thank you for the precious life that you give us. It is short in the scheme of things, but we know that we have eternity to look forward to. And we know that our loved ones that are resting in Jesus, that we will see them again soon. The Bible promises it, and we claim that promise. Lord, I just ask that you would please be with each one that has come out tonight. You know what each one may be struggling with in their life. You know the illnesses that they're working to heal. And you also know the solutions. And I just ask that you would place your hand upon them, give them comfort, give them help and healing, encouragement, that you are there with them. Please go with each one, keep them safe as they travel home. And may we all be reunited soon in heaven, if not here on earth. In Jesus' name, amen. I thank you for coming out, and I wish you all a good, blessed night. Thank you.
Amen.